Hello, I'm David Tickner, Chief Executive of the Civil Service Retirement Fellowship, and I'm delighted to welcome you to a brand new episode of our 60 Voices podcast, which was launched to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Civil Service Retirement Fellowship. In this series, we'll be sharing the fascinating stories and personal reflections of former civil servants as they look back on their careers and the impact they had on the nation. 60 Voices aims to conserve and preserve these important work memories, from the challenges they face to the memorable moments that define their work. Each episode offers a unique personal insight into the history of the UK's civil service and the people who helped shape it. Whether you're a former colleague or someone interested in public service, we invite you to join us as we explore the voices behind decades of dedication, service, and legacy. Joining me on the journey, as usual, for our podcast is my friend and co-host, Denise Headley. Denise is the CSRF's Deputy Chief Executive and has an extensive background in broadcasting and commentary, and runs her own successful weekly podcast on politics and world affairs. But for this episode, we are delighted to welcome Isabel Cameron, who has been a member of the CSRF Community since 1996 and is a regular attendee of the Catford and Lewisham Group. So welcome to the 60 Voices podcast, Isabel.
Hello.
Hello, lovely to have you with us. So
Lovely to see you.
I'm going to start you off with a nice and easy question, which is, what made you choose the civil service as a career?
Well, I went to Manchester Polytechnic Library School, and there I specialised in the social services. So when it came time to look for a new job, I've thought that the DHSS, as it was then, was a good fit.
Jolly good. And was the process, we've had some very interesting observations from people who've done earlier episodes about the entry process to the civil service. How was that for you? I mean, did you have to sit an exam? Were you vetted? What was involved for you?
Well, there was no exam, as I know that many other standard civil servants have, but I was interviewed by the Chief Librarian and others at the Department of Health, and I was vetted, and but my start was rather unusual in that I was meant to start in January 1971, but there was a postal strike which lasted for several months, and so I didn't start until April.
So you had a few months to G yourself up to start the job.
That's right.
Yeah.
I eventually went to Savile Row to sign this Official Secrets Act, and then started at the library at the Elephant and Castle.
Oh wow! Now, have you obviously, is your building presumably is no longer there in Elephant and Castle, or is it still there?
It is still there,
It is
but
still
it's
there.
now Metro Central Flats.
So as with most, I drove past Elephant and Castle earlier in the week, and I used to work just off the Old Kent Road many moons ago. And it's almost unrecognizable in terms of what's building. I mean, great in terms of development, although I suspect that most people have been priced out of Elephant and Castle who were originally living there now. But do you, for the interview, do you remember your interview when you first joined the civil service? I mean, in terms of what was involved?
Well, I can't say that I remember that terribly well, because I was probably a bag of nerves at the time. But they seemed happy that I'd been looking particularly at social service type databases and so on while I was at library school. That was following university, by the way. And
so just going back one step, so you had an early career as a librarian, is that right? Before you then chose to move into the civil service, or was the civil service your first job?
No, it wasn't my first job. After going to Edinburgh University and studying English language and literature, I spent 18 months as a junior library assistant at Birkbeck College Library.
Wow.
which was very interesting indeed. And
what was the highlight of do you remember I mean, obviously do you remember what the job involved? I mean, what the highlights were?
yes, well, I was a very junior library assistant. I spent the time really shelving books and cataloguing cards, filing catalogue cards. And the most interesting thing was I was introduced to the Bliss classification system, which is only used in about 26 libraries in England at that time. And I actually studied the well-known Dewey Decimal classification when I was at library school, but I was destined never to use that professionally.
Oh,
Birkbeck introduced me to library systems.
Could you just tell us a little bit more about what library systems are, Isabel? Because first of all, I didn't even know that there was such a thing as library school, and how that would work. And then also, I'm just trying to think about how libraries used to physically look in terms of how they used to appear. Because I mean, my local library now is a collection of a myriad of services. Like the book section is a tiny part of it. So could you just tell us a bit about library school and what libraries just used to look like?
Well, certainly there are many library schools around the country, but it's now available as a university degree in
Oh,
what usually called library and information professionals, library and information services. And the most famous are at Aberystwyth, and they have the people there do a full 3 years. But when I went to my the library school at Manchester Polytechnic, it was a postgraduate diploma from the then Library Association.
oh, right.
It's now the Chartered Institute of Library and Information Professionals.
wow. I don't think your average person even is aware that there's a library and information professional. Because when I go to the library, and when I used to go to the library, I would see the librarians, they would be there assisting. But I never thought about the classifications or the systems. I just thought people would file the books alphabetically or based on the subject as opposed to a system. So for me, that's really interesting to know and to even, because that's what I think part of the 60 Voices is. It's about sharing knowledge, but also about
Absolutely.
conserving how things used to be. So
Yes.
that's a first for me.
As it happens, I've never worked in a public library,
Oh,
but I did my placement in 1970 at Barnet Libraries Service based at Hendon, and they had the first computerized library catalogue in London.
Wow.
So I've been in at this sort of the beginning of the computerization of information services.
that's really cool, because I know you pick up on that further in some of the points that you make in the bit of like the data, the pro forma you filled in for us. Sorry, Dee, I cut across you. Go on.
No. After you.
Well, I was wanting to ask you, did you ever do any work in the voluntary sector? Because I was looking at what you'd shared, and you said that you concentrated on literature sources in the social services field. And I just wondered if you'd done any work within the voluntary sector, or was it just primarily with the civil service?
Yes, no, I didn't do voluntary work as such. And once I'd got to the Department of Health, I actually concentrated on the health side,
Okay.
health and medicine side. So I then used partly social services because the department then provided social security as well as health.
Isabel, can I just ask a question, just a sidebar to what Denise has just asked? I mean, it's very interesting because I think the perception is that you would think, I mean, obviously now what was DHSS is now DWP or Job Centre. and the sort of the literature element, I'm assuming, is information based in the sense of what was being catalogued perhaps was information that was given to external clients or not, no?
In those days, the health and the social security were completely separate.
Right, okay.
Now it's the Department of Health.
Ah, right, okay. So the librarian and the cataloguing element was to do with health information, is that right? Or
That's right.
oh, I'm with you. That makes sense. So that could be reports that were commissioned by the department or general health information, or was it external or internal or a bit of both in terms of the information you were cataloguing?
Yes, well, my first job there was indeed writing abstracts for hospital abstracts, which was a list of journal articles
Mhm.
from a host of journals in the medical field and the health field, but naturally it concentrated on the administration of health services, both at home and abroad,
Wow.
including costs and so on.
So you had the right, you weren't just cataloguing, you were actually writing as well. So you had a combination of both.
Yes, I wasn't doing so much cataloguing as such then,
Yeah.
but I would be abstracting the essentials of books and journal articles, and these were then distributed throughout the NHS and other health institutions in the NHS and universities and so on.
I should imagine that kept you busy quite a lot of the working day.
Yes, indeed, that was the main thing. I also was still filing catalogue cards as well.
Did you go, I mean, when you were doing this, were you based in the Department of Health in Whitehall, or was it in an office, was it in Elephant and Castle you did most of your...
At that time, there had been an experiment to sort of disperse the main offices to the outskirts. And in fact,
right.
the Alexander Fleming House was then the headquarters of the Department of Health, and we had the ministers there.
Oh,
One of the early ones was Barbara Castle.
formidable minister.
Yes.
Did you ever encounter Barbara Castle?
No, they had a special block, as it were.
Okay.
I saw her once leaving to go to the House of Commons.
Yeah.
But that was an experiment that, as it were, failed because they felt that they weren't close enough to Westminster. And eventually, long after I left, they moved to Richmond House, which you may know of.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting what your observation is there, because it just goes to show how things go in circles. Because right now they are moving civil servants or encouraging civil servants to move out of London and to move more regionally. So obviously the experiment that you refer to in the 1970s has gone completely full circle and come back again, because again, they are trying to encourage the development of regional hubs, which are like multi-departmental buildings that would have a host department, like a lead department, which is usually HMRC or DWP, as the two of the bigger departments, but also have other aspects of the civil service operating from the same buildings. So the experiment you refer to has come back right the way round again, Isabel.
Well, I was later in my career, I was subject to the dispersal notion. But
Were you? Where were you dispersed to?
that was after I'd left the Department of Health to go to another civil service department.
I've got a quick question. Isabel, were you the first person in your family to be a civil servant, or is there a history of civil servants in your family?
Well, yes, my father was a civil servant.
Oh,
He was actually an air traffic controller.
Wow.
And
where?
when he was working, it was run by the Board of Trade.
Okay.
It's now the Civil Aviation Authority. And they still have their their main offices in Holborn.
And so he was presumably greatly approving of the fact that his daughter wanted to become a civil servant, as he was a civil servant himself, or was he not so keen? Or
He was quite happy that I should be a civil servant too.
and were you both? Was he? Did you overlap at all? Was he working when you started? Was he still working, or had he?
No, he'd retired, but at that he had retired by then. By the time I actually started.
The CSRF, the Civil Service Retirement Fellowship, is a charity set up for civil servants by civil servants. In 1960, Douglas Houghton MP highlighted the need for an organisation that supported retired civil servants offering friendship and companionship. 59 years later, we are still carrying on his dream. You can find out more about the CSRF at our website, www.csrf.org.uk. Why not sign up to become a digital donor for £3, less than the price of coffee? Or you may wish to volunteer. Contact us via the website.
Lovely. Oh,
I was going to try and sneeze in the break.
I was going to say, bless you to my co-host who's about to sneeze on camera.
I think that was really interesting, the point you made, Isabel, about family connections with the civil service, because I think that speaks to the questions of fellowship and legacy, the things that the CSRF is very much focused on, because we support the families of retired civil servants and we support existing civil servants. And quite a few of the people who we've spoken to have also mentioned that their family members were in the civil service, and that's what actually got them to consider a role in the civil service. And I just think that link is really important to highlight. One of the things that I was interested in is that you had quite a varied career in terms of like the Department of Health and Social Security, and I wondered what you thought were the key ideas that you absorbed as like an ordinary person in the way in which the role that governments have in looking after people's health. So what did you think about that as like a wider issue in terms of, I don't know if I've put that question very well, but essentially what I'm trying to say is what did you absorb as an ordinary person in that field, and how did that, what kind of thoughts did you have about that?
Yes, well, I don't know that I particularly thought that much on those lines, but definitely it was most interesting to see the inner workings of health services, especially the NHS, which has undergone massive change from the time when I first started, and has undergone several sort of rethinks and various changes over the years. When I first started, they had regional health authorities, and now, of course, it's NHS trusts, and it's all very different in the way it's managed compared to what it was when I was first writing my abstracts, and I was reading journals like the Nursing Times, the BMJ and Lancet, and various other journals of on the administration of health, as well as the actual medicine side.
What do you think of the changes? Oh, sorry, Dee.
No, I'll just say it sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But what do you think of the changes in terms of, given that you had an inside view to how you feel now? I mean, what do you think of the way things have changed? Do you think it's for our better? Do you think it's improved? Do you think it's the same, decreased?
I think it's a very difficult thing to handle, actually. I think having a national health service helps because you can have more standardization of provision. But sometimes you do feel it's sort of overmanaged.
That's
And
diplomatically put.
yes, yes. And even now, they're still trying to uh, standardize computerization within the NHS, within its administrative roles and so on. And it's astonishing sometimes that they're still sort of doing things that we were trying to do in the in the 70s and 80s.
Well, they say history repeats itself, Isabel. So it's an example of how it goes round again. I wanted to just ask a quick question. Obviously, you made some you commentary about the DSS. That's where you started, but you also obviously referred to a department, the Civil Service Occupational Health and Safety Agency.
Yeah.
Was that within the Department for Health, or was that a completely standalone?
That's a completely different department. Then it was an agency of the Cabinet Office. When
Oh, right.
I joined, I actually swapped with the then librarian, who, as they were going to relocate to Edinburgh
Okay.
as part of the dispersal
Yeah.
idea.
Was that how did that differ? I mean, the job, were you doing fundamentally the same job, or was it very different in terms of the areas you were responsible for?
Well, in a way, librarians are sort of trained to move from subject to subject, but
Yeah.
the actual process of library services is the same everywhere.
Mhm.
And so in that sense, it wasn't the difference was in the subject matter. And like the Department of Health, the subject matter was fascinating.
I bet.
Um, if I may describe some of the areas we covered.
Yes, please do. We'd love to hear.
Yes, and as its name implies, it covers occupational health and safety in the workplace
Mhm.
and occupational medicine. Originally, when Nye Bevan envisaged the National Health Service, occupational health and medicine was supposed to be part of it, but it never did. So it's it doesn't have a Royal College. It has a Society of Occupational Medicine and so on. So the main subjects that they covered were sickness absence
Mhm.
and sickness absence referrals and fitness to work.
Oh.
That's
So
still an issue today, Isabel.
yes, yes. Well, they covered an incredible range of not just office workers, but we had covered fitness to work, for instance, of aerial riggers who would be working on communication masts and so on.
Oh, wow.
Thing, and also the laboratories that were part of the civil service. So they covered chemical safety as well as physical safety.
So all the pamphlets and leaflets you were producing were effectively guidelines for any organization, or was it just within the civil service?
It was just the civil
It was
service.
just within the civil service, but
The
fundamentally,
entire civil service throughout the UK.
yeah.
So we had offices in each country. One in Scotland, one in Northern Ireland, one in Wales, and then several throughout England. The headquarters, as I mentioned, was in Edinburgh.
Very nice.
I just wanted to make an observation, and it's as somebody I haven't been in the civil service. I didn't come from the civil service background, and one of the things that I really like about 60 Voices is it demonstrates the breadth of the areas that ordinary people, because that's what civil servants in Bury are. They're not coming from the elite parts of society. They're ordinary people, and the roles that they have and the number of things that they're involved in, because you just don't think. I've never thought of these health and safety of an aerial individual who's working on cables, because you just don't think about it. You just see them up. You don't even see anybody ever working on them. But clearly they will have to be managed in a certain way. They need to have certain health and safety standards. And that's what I find interesting and intriguing about 60 Voices. It's like a behind the scenes view of how life used to be and all of the areas that we cover. There was something I just wanted to ask you, because when it talked about here, you talked about, is it the Circle of State Librarians?
Yes, these.
Could you just tell me what that is? Because I don't know what that is. And I've got here, not sure what this is.
Well, it was a group of government librarians who regularly met, and we had meetings and visited each other's libraries.
Oh, wow.
And so it was that was a voluntary thing, as it were. We met in the evenings, and
to share your experiences and pool your knowledge, I would suspect.
Right, yes.
Is it still going now, Isabel?
Well, I'm not absolutely sure about that, but I've no doubt maybe someone will let me know. But as far as the DHSS is concerned, we still have some reunions of staff.
That's nice. Yeah. So how people you worked with many, many years ago, you still in touch with? That's lovely. What was the last get together?
That was just before the pandemic in 2019. And we are a diminishing band, but and nevertheless, it's very nice to meet up with all my old colleagues.
So, as you were telling us all about your entry to the civil service, we're quite keen to find out about your journey within the civil service. So, obviously, you mentioned about the fact you started in the Department of Health, and then you moved into the Civil Service Occupational Health and Safety Agency. But could you give us a bit more context about where else you went? Because obviously, you've made the point earlier on that your skills were very transferable, being a librarian. So share with us where else you worked in the civil service in the librarian capacity.
Well, as I mentioned, I started in 1971 at the Elephant and Castle with the Department of Health.
Yeah.
And but in round about 1974, I moved to the Architects Library of the Department of Health, which was based at Euston Tower, and that entailed an entirely new set of subjects for me to keep up with and provide a service for. And it wasn't just architects, but engineers, hospital engineers, and surveyors as well. And it all was at the heyday of the hospital building era, following the hospital plan of 1966. It's the post-war era of hospital building, and they were providing guidelines for the construction of new hospitals, and and how they should be designed.
It's all PFI now, Isabel.
PFI. Oh, yes, I know what you mean, yes.
So the building, I mean, in terms of that must have been fascinating to see, but was there a sort of standard approach to the building program, or did it vary massively around the country?
Indeed. Well, the first hospital that was designed to guidelines from the Department of Health was at Greenwich Hospital.
Oh, wow.
Then we had what were called the Best Buy hospitals in Frimley and another place in East Anglia. finally they had what they called the harness system of hospital libraries, where it was intended to be sort of modular and you could build it up over a period of time, and all specified to the best way of providing the actual service in a hospital.
That's fascinating. And who drew up these plans, though? Was it drawn up by, I mean, obviously there was a building element, so there was obviously an architectural side to obviously how they imagined it, but there was obviously a lot more besides that went into that.
Indeed. Well, for instance, the architects designed provided plans for the modular building of the new hospitals, and
Yeah.
was sent out in what they called hospital building notes, and the engineers would cover everything from boilers to the electrical systems and so on. And surveyors obviously do what they do when buildings are being constructed.
And you mentioned some different types of hospitals. I mean, was that, how did they determine which areas had which hospitals, or was that just predetermined by the Department of Health? Or
Yes, I think the hospital plan had looked at what hospitals were currently in place,
oh, I see. Okay.
deciding on where new hospitals were needed,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. And then the architects department, plus the engineers and surveyors, contributed to the building of the new hospitals to the best possible standards.
Very good. And did you ever have an opportunity to visit any of the sites? You'd obviously seen all of these when you were cataloguing them all. Did you actually see them as they grew out of the plans into, or did they never let you out the building?
Well, no, I didn't actually see any of the new hospitals as such. So
I think we could do with a national plan for health in that way. Because,
Absolutely.
I mentioned PFI because the local hospital to where I live was actually extended with private finance initiative funding. And it's a loan which needs to be paid back. And it's also, and the way it works is that essentially over the period of 20 to 30 years, that loan is paid off. But the point is, who's covering the loan? I think it's you and I.
yes,
I suspect so.
yes, that all came after I was with the Department of Health. So
And how long were you doing the architect librarian role for?
about 5 years, and then
Oh, wow.
I
Then where did you go after that?
I went back to the Elephant and Castle, and there I was in charge of the hospital abstracts, which were then renamed health abstracts to cover all the types of buildings that are in the NHS, including GP surgeries and health centres and such like.
That must have been a huge
So I was thinking,
And who could, I mean, obviously you're cataloguing all of this, but presumably anybody within Whitehall could request information from your catalogue. Is that how it worked?
Well, while I was there at as I say, when I was at library school, the development of online databases for anyone to search literature databases was in its heyday. It was really starting, and the Department of Health Library, under its then chief librarian, Miss Khan, was that's Kahn,
Yeah.
was one of the pioneers in providing a service which is available for anyone who subscribes to search online via database hosts like Dialogue. You may not have heard of Dialogue.
yeah, I saw that in your I saw that in what you sent us back. It says one of your proudest moments was contributing to the literature sources that go on the international online database, such as Dialogue. And the question I had is, what is it and what did it do and why was it important? But you've just told us what it did, what it does, and why it was important.
Well, at that time, the major medical databases like Index Medicus and Excerpta Medica, they were the sources for doctors and nurses and general health and medical information, covering, you know, thousands of journals, was just being set up and available. And they are now called Medline and Embase, and they're available via a database host such as Dialogue, and there are others, so that anyone can search them.
So you were involved in something that's still being used today. How does that feel?
Oh, yes, indeed.
I mean, it's very interesting, though, what you've said about the whole computerization of your department, because I can't remember who it was that we spoke to on an earlier episode, but we did actually, they touched on the moment the computer first arrived in the office, and there was like one machine in the whole of the office, and they had like a rotation system of when they were allowed to have time on the computer. Whereas obviously you, I think probably 10 years in advance at that point, were way more technologically ahead than some other departments in the civil service were, presumably because of the giant volume of information you were needing to have a mechanism to obviously catalogue.
Yes, yes. I know that there were several other government libraries at the time also going through that process.
But I guess that means, Isabel, that you are super proficient on all things computers, are you? Even now?
Yeah, no, that was, that's what I was thinking.
So are you a whiz on computers now? They don't phase you at all?
I'm very at home with my computer.
That's a good place to be.
But I'm not what we used to call a programmer or coder or anything like that. But I know how to use it, as it were.
Which is very important. Very important. So tell us, obviously, you worked obviously for several years in the OHSA. So what happened with that in terms of an agency?
Yes. Well, as I mentioned, we were originally moved from the London to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And we remained as the OHSA for several years, but then we had a Treasury scrutiny to
Sounds painful.
yes, it was. To look at privatization, which was beginning to become into vogue at the time. And although they actually advised that we should remain with the civil service, privatization went ahead anyway. And I was taken on as a librarian with the BMI Health Services.
Oh, right. Who I think still run health services, don't they, BMI?
They do still exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were the biggest provider of health of private hospitals in at the time. Certainly at the time when I joined them, they still provided the entire service that we had provided as the OHSA. And so they still needed a librarian.
And how did you feel about the change?
Well, I felt disappointed that in a way, we've been lured to Scotland. And then after privatization, I had to go back to London to work.
That's a bit. So you moved. Oh, so you obviously you had to you relocated.
You had to move house.
Yeah. And then had to move all the way back down again after privatisation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the later on, of course, BMI Health Services itself were taken over by Capita, and they were only interested in a basic service with the professionals, the doctors and nurses. And so all the administrative staff were made redundant.
Wow.
Prior to that, we had accommodated what are called doctors in training. They're fully fledged doctors, but they have to spend 6 months in a specialty before they get regular jobs in the NHS. But Capita decided they weren't doing that. So a library was no longer needed. And that was when I was made redundant.
The CSRF, the Civil Service Retirement Fellowship, is a charity set up for civil servants by civil servants. In 1960, Douglas Houghton MP highlighted the need for an organisation that supported retired civil servants offering friendship and companionship. 59 years later, we are still carrying on his dream. You can find out more about the CSRF at our website, www.csrf.org.uk. Why not sign up to become a digital donor for £3, less than the price of coffee? Or you may wish to volunteer. Contact us via the website. Could I just ask a question, Isabel? If they only kept the professional staff in terms of who they were looking after and providing services for, what happened to all of the administrative functions that were there, that used to be there? Did they just stop doing that work?
No, well, they already had administrative staff.
Oh, I
You know,
see.
They didn't need the administrative staff. So
So it sounds to me that you left ahead of when you were actually planning to do, obviously by being made redundant. But at the time, how did you feel? I mean, were you happy to leave, or were you? I would imagine you were probably quite upset to go, weren't you?
I was disappointed rather than distressed, although some people were very distressed by it. But although I was just 6 months before my 60th birthday then, but I still wanted to work. So I joined a recruitment agency.
Oh, how interesting.
Yes, and very soon I got a job with breast cancer care as a 6 months contract to catalogue their backlog of books, which I had sort of fallen behind. So that was very interesting too. It was a very lovely place to work in, lovely people.
And was that in London?
Yes, they then were based in Putney.
Okay.
Right, very nice.
So in terms of your career, you've kind of traversed quite a lot of the UK. You meant London, Elephant and Castle, Edinburgh. You've moved around a lot. And I noticed here also you said that you were working with Enfield and Haringey Mental Health Trust. Could you
That's
just give
right.
us some thoughts about how
Yes.
were you, what was it like there?
Well, when I joined there, I was still with the agency, but eventually I was taken on by the Barnet, Enfield and Haringey Mental Health Trust. And there I served, it was a completely different field, of course, psychiatry, and there were about 2,500 staff dispersed over 40 plus offices and locations in the boroughs.
That's your neck of the woods, isn't it, Dee? Up that
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking because
Well, I worked at St Anne's Hospital in
I
Tottenham.
know St Anne's.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to have a psychiatric day unit there. And then also Enfield Mental Health Trust, they also had a day unit, which is just not far from Edmonton Green.
That's right. and we covered. We had staff in various hospitals like Barnet Hospital and Enfield Community Hospital and Chase Farm Hospital, which is
Well, Chase Farm has undergone a major revamp in terms of the way it looks. They sold off quite a considerable part of their land and they developed it into housing. And then they have a new unit also at the side, I think additionally PFI funding. So like you said, you know, the health landscape is so different from when you were working at cataloging. And I just see that as almost like a lot of data management. You know, we would call that now data management, but that's essentially what's happening. And I recently saw, I think, was it Google was trying to catalog quite a lot of the NHS imagery with a view to using it commercially.
Yes, I'm sure they now have, you know, digitization of most of the government guidelines and health service guidelines.
So you can legitimately say, Isabel, you work for the two largest employers in the UK. You were a civil servant and worked for the NHS.
Yes.
So two. I mean, they are. I think. I'm pretty sure they are the two biggest employers in the UK. Those two.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So talk to us about, obviously you've very kindly shared your fascinating journey. So once you retired, because obviously you sort of like doubly retired. You were forcibly retired from the civil service by being made redundant, and then you obviously retired from the NHS. I think 2017, around that time, was it?
2016. Yes.
2016.
Yes.
What did you do? I mean, were you
2013 actually?
Oh, was it 2013? Were you at that point, were you looking forward to retirement? Did you have lots of ideas about what you were going to do in retirement? Did they help you into retirement? I mean, when you were coming up to leave, were the NHS supportive in terms of provision of pre-retirement sort resources to give you advice and guidance?
Yes, we did have a seminar for people who were going to retire. That came from financial advisors.
So it was very much finance based, was it? In terms of what to spend your pension on and make sure you know how much what you're going to get and all the rest of it. And what were your plans in retirement? I mean, in terms of what you must have, worked all those years, you were probably thinking, I'm free, I can do what I want.
Well, funnily enough, initially I wasn't free because I then went on jury service for 3 months.
Wow.
How was that?
It felt like being back at work, you know.
How was that?
It's quite harrowing in its way. It was a fraud case because apparently fraud cases in England are all done at Southwark Crown Court. And these defendants were coming, it was, as I say, a fraud case. They were having to come from Manchester.
Wow.
And it lasted 3 months. And,
so was it quite a significant case then, or was that the average lifespan of a fraud case? I suppose all the
it was the average, but there were 6 defendants initially. And then, so there was an enormous amount of documentation.
And were you appointed the foreman of the jury, Isabel?
No, I wasn't.
But I'd imagine your cataloguing in your mind was very useful to get the information in the right order and all of that.
Oh, it was very difficult because you couldn't take your notes home with you. You weren't allowed to do that.
Oh, yeah.
So you never got a chance to recap. And because it was financial and so on, it was very difficult to follow.
So after you've done your jury service, what did you then, when you finally were able to have some free time, what have you done since retiring that you particularly enjoy?
Yes, well, I took 2, the main holidays I took one to Turkey, which was very interesting indeed, Istanbul, and then touring round. and visiting all the major sites like Ephesus and Pergamon, which is very much associated with libraries.
I was just going to say, is there a library theme? The great libraries of the world. That could be a travel experience for you, Isabel.
Yes, sadly, my next holiday was to Egypt.
Wow.
Sadly, there's no longer a library in Alexandria.
Yes, that was burned many centuries ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Many centuries ago, yes. But it's the most famous library probably in the
And is there a library on your wish list that you would love to visit that you never have?
Well, not that I can think of offhand, but
Okay.
one of the magnificent ones that I've been to would include the Manchester Public Library when I was there in 1970, and it was known as the Wedding Cake.
Oh, wow. Well, because of the design of the building? Or...
Yes, it was a
Oh,
big,
right.
enormous circular building with the levels going up and gradually, just like a wedding cake.
I'm just thinking about the Vatican's library, how you would be if you had an opportunity to get in there.
Yeah, what secrets you'd be able to catalogue from it.
Also, you like opera, don't you, Isabel?
Yes, that's well, I keep up, as I say, with my former colleagues, both from the Department of Health and the NHS, and there's a little group of NHS librarians who have a theatre group.
Very good. What was the last show you went to see?
Well, I went to a pantomime in Jermyn Street, a tiny theatre there.
Wow.
And
That sounds like it could be a bit alternative.
it was a bit alternative. It was quite fun.
That's fantastic. I think I'm just thinking about quirky theatres. There's one in Hackney called Arcola Street Theatre,
Well,
and they have Dalston Brood Bear. But they have lots of interesting, not opera, but they have lots of interesting plays and theatres things. I've been there a few times, but it's a nice local theatre, and they've got a few little they've got loads of restaurants if you fancy anything to nibble afterwards.
I have to say that the Arcola do have an opera season, which is called Grime-Bourne.
Grime-Bourne. Oh, that's right. Have you been, Isabel?
Channeling Blindbourne. I'm to see 3 with a friend this August.
No, we guess
I'd like to hear that.
That's how it is.
Yeah, please do. Because I think I think the other day my mum was saying to me that there was a play there by a previous person that we'd seen the play, and it was going to be there. But I wasn't aware that they had an opera season.
Yeah.
I like that. Grime-Bourne. That's very clever. Very clever.
It's a very small theatre.
Yes, it is. It's very...
You improvise a lot.
Yeah. It's very intimate, isn't it? That's what they call it.
And the other thing I was going to ask you, tell us about your singing group. Do you still do that?
Yes. Well, I have COPD, and this some years ago, my GP recommended me to join a group that was being run then by the British Lung Foundation called Singing for Better Breathing.
Very good.
It's based in Rotherhithe, and after they sort of finished their interest in it, we've continued it ourselves and calling it Breath of Life.
That's an excellent name.
Yes.
What songs are you performing at the moment then?
Well, we have an eclectic.
So you're doing any grime in your singing group?
Any Stormzy, Isabel?
Exactly.
But we do things like pop songs of yesteryear. Things we were doing. What were we doing? Yeah, just on Tuesday we were singing. Oh dear, I'm afraid old age has caught up with me.
No, that's fine.
Worry.
You've done so well.
You've got the X factor, Isabel.
You have. You've definitely got the X factor. And I suppose, right, as we're reaching the top of the hour, and what if you were going to give any advice to anybody approaching retirement, or even considering a career in the civil service, what would your advice be?
Oh, well, I think it can be very rewarding being a part of the civil service. And there's I find usually there was always a great camaraderie in all the places where I worked, whether it was a private or public service. And
That's a good endorsement, and I would say actually that's been a common theme with a lot of the people we've spoken to, who have obviously kept in touch with colleagues, and I guess that's what prompted you to join the CSRF in 1996. That idea of the fellowship. Where did you first discover about?
but
Retirement
I
fellowship?
think I'd heard. I'm almost sure I'd joined it earlier when I was with the Department of Health,
Mhm.
All right.
and I became a life member.
You did, yeah.
Well, it was possibly in '96 that I started providing an annual subscription, as distinct from having paid a life membership, and then you don't pay anything at all. I think you had a sort of campaign to get people who were life members to
You
start.
did. You did. You very kindly switched from a life to a single annual about 5 years ago.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
which is very
yes.
nice
So
of you.
I have been a member, as it were, for a long time before.
You were, yeah,
It's
exactly. And one parting thought: what would your top tip for making the most of retirement be for somebody listening to the podcast?
Well, I think try to do as much as you possibly can while you're able.
I think that's an excellent note to end on. So I would just like to say, obviously, before I do my end for the podcast, to say how much of a pleasure it is to have had you on, Isabel. And as Dee mentioned at the top, it's a learning process for us. I've learned an awful lot more about a whole area of the civil service that I had no clue was quite as integrated and interesting as you have made it. In addition to the excellent way you've shared all your work experiences. And I hope you have a fantastic time at Grime-Bourne in August. And when we next see you at Catford and Lewisham Group, we will look forward to hearing all about how that went. But apart from that, just to say a huge thank you for joining us. And we hope you've enjoyed it. Dee, you were going to say a quick closing?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Isabel, but I really enjoyed learning about what the different elements of the service. But also, I just think it was really brave of you to come and speak with us, because I know sometimes people are not sure about doing new things, but I just like the way you've completely embraced it. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for trusting myself and David with your work memories and sharing all of that. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Isabel.
Thank you.
And stay put, because I'm just going to do the wrap line. So just to say, that wraps this episode of the 60 Voices podcast with Isabel Cameron. It will be available via our YouTube channel in the coming days. So if you've enjoyed this, we would encourage you to listen to the other episodes, which are also on our YouTube channel, with such alumni as Samir Gray, our office volunteer Jean, our new National Honorary Treasurer Fred, just to name a few. But there are plenty, and we've got plenty more for you to be entertained by in the coming months. We've got at least 4 or 5 new people who will be joining the podcast to talk about their memories of all sorts of different walks of life, from the most senior in the civil service to the most regular member of an ordinary department. But no matter what your rank, wherever you've come from, your story is the same. And on our podcast, the person is the star for the time they're with us. So thank you very much for listening, and we hope you will join us again in the future. And if you want to find out more about us as an organisation, check out the Civil Service Retirement Fellowship website, www.csrf.org.uk, and you can find out all about the charitable services we provide, make a donation, sign up as an annual supporter, or just generally reach out and say hello. And if you'd like to join us, have you listened to Isabel and you've been inspired, you realize it's not a frightening experience, we'd love to have you on in the future. So give us a call and we'd be delighted to take you through the registration process. But goodbye from us, and we will see you again on the next episode.
The CSRF, the Civil Service Retirement Fellowship, is a charity set up for civil servants by civil servants. In 1960, Douglas Houghton MP highlighted the need for an organisation that supported retired civil servants offering friendship and companionship. 59 years later, we are still carrying on his dream. You can find out more about the CSRF at our website www.csrf.org.uk. Why not sign up to become a digital donor for £3, less than the price of coffee? Or you may wish to volunteer. Contact us via the website.